and I'm assuming this is the time and the quality of video, but it does look a little bit like when kids would do a film project in high school. Do you know what I mean? Same caliber, same quality, a little bit.
Yeah, of like,
Yeah, and then they're just really
like
not sure what to do once they're
yeah,
on camera.
they have like one idea, and then it's like there's like nothing else to it. So they're like, "Oh, I'll be Max Headroom. This will be really funny." And
It's
then
gonna
like,
be really funny, man. I'll be Max Headroom. We'll just go with it. We'll just go with once I'm on camera, just
I'll just
follow what I'm
figure it
saying.
out. But like every high schooler's a fucking idiot, so they have
Yeah,
anything going
exactly.
on.
Oh yeah, brilliant idea. You're a total fucking idiot. I'm glad you figured that out.
That's what Ryan says walking down the hall every day.
No, you won't. You're
You're a fucking idiot. Your mom hates you. Congratulations.
So, like, as I was doing my research, and you've watched the videos now, and it's fucking weird.
Oh, so
And
weird.
and
Yeah.
you kind of get an idea of what this guy's like. So then I came across this Reddit post of a guy who says, oh, he says, I believe I know who was behind the Max Headroom incident that occurred on Chicago TV in '87. And he launches into this pretty sizable thing, and I'll just do like the highlights. And he starts off by saying, when I was in my early teens, a number of my friends were into the local freaking / hacking scene. This was suburban Chicago from '85 to '93 or so. They were much older than me. They were high school and college age, but they put up with me as a sort of a novelty, I guess. They liked the fact that I looked up to them in a quasi role model, as a quasi role model at least. So then he goes on to talk about these guys. He only refers to them by their initials. He goes, first, there was the obvious. The FCC, so he talks, so the FCC at the time, after this had happened, had come out with like, this is what we're going to do to the people that did this, which was kind of like, this is a bad thing in my opinion. The FCC was like, this is how we're going to punish the people when we find them. But of course, it meant because they put the punishment out, it meant that they would never fucking find them. The punishment was $100,000 fine and at least 1 year in prison. Of course, whoever did this was like, well, we're not going to talk about it anymore. So he talks about these guys named K and J. And I believe he talks about Jay the most. He says, Jay, despite having fairly severe autism and coming off as basically crazy, was actually kind of funny. His sense of humor was sort of disturbing, sort of sexually deviant in nature. He wasn't very personable, but he was funny. The sort of person that you would feel kind of uncomfortable sitting next to as a kid, but he grew on you after a while. That's kind of a rapey thing to say.
Yeah.
You would accept him as one of the group after realizing that his mannerisms were odd but basically harmless. No eye contact, ever. But the dirty jokes were funny, at least to me as a 13-year-old at the time. He goes, although it's circumstantial, this is the first bit of evidence I have. The Max Headroom video features a guy who at one point holds up what appears to be a vibrator or a dildo and tosses it out of the frame. The end of the video shows a woman dressed up as Annie Oakley swatting someone's bare ass with a fly swatter. This was the sort of humor that Jay loved. All of his jokes constantly involve something childish and or sexually deviant. The video, for all intents and purposes, is a perfect reflection of Jay's sense of humor, scattered, nervous, and comically sexually deviant. So he feels like he knew someone, this Jay fella. And then he goes on to like describe the way that Jay spoke. And for those of you that watch the video, it kind of leads some credence to the way this guy thinks and the way he behaves. So here's an example of him. He said, he had his own topics he wanted to talk about. He gave an example of a conversation he had. He goes, me, hey Jay, how old are you anyways? And then Jay responds, oh, do you know why I told you not to sit in the front seat? Me, why? Jay, oh, in case you said something stupid. Me, what did you mean? Jay, there's a surprise under the seat for people who say something stupid. Oh, if you say something stupid. Me. Huh? Jay. What TV shows do you watch? Me. I don't really watch TV. Jay. Hey, I'm hungry. Oh. I hope you don't say anything stupid again.
What
So
a
remember
weird
how,
thing.
yeah, so like in the video he kept saying, oh,
Yeah.
oh Jesus. Right?
Okay.
That's like pretty indicative of the way this guy spoke.
Right.
He goes on to give like a good amount of circumstantial evidence of why this guy K. And the biggest one he gives is that he's a young kid and he's sitting with his group of older kids and they're talking about they're going to do something big. They're going to do something great, right? And he asked them later on, hey, I heard you guys are going to do something big. What is it? And they say, nothing. Just watch Channel 11 tonight. Turns out Channel 11 was WGN.
Okay.
So now here's the weird part. So the original post was posted 9 years ago.
Good.
Okay. So 2009ish, where he talks about these guys, K and J, and then a woman named M. And of course, there's a woman in the video.
Right.
So he provides an addendum to the original post that was 9 years old. 4 years later, he says, after 4 years, I'm happy to say that the two individuals mentioned in the article, J and K, have been formally excluded as suspects. We've decided to leave the story here. For those who have interest in reading the case and background for more information, please read this. So he leaves a link. And the link pretty much is an interview he has. He talks to some folks who work as engineers for one of the TV stations at the time. And the engineers pretty much said, like, well, if you didn't have knowledge of the way our system worked, you definitely couldn't have done this. Which, if these guys were freaking with a PH and hacking at the time, their entire job is to fucking generate knowledge of the way systems work and exploit them for their weaknesses. Right? So to me, it reads as he fucking mentioned J and K and W, and J, or maybe it's J, K, and M. I have to read it again. He mentions these three folks, and then comes back 4 years later and goes, actually, it wasn't them. No big deal. Sorry. So it leads you to maybe perhaps these three people are actually like maybe work for the syndicate somehow, or they are a little bit more famous now than they were, even though statute of limitations is probably long gone by now.
Right.
Still don't want to lose their jobs. Some bullshit they pulled when they were their late teens.
That is like so nutty though. Like it if anything, it makes it's one of those things where like it makes it more suspicious that you came back 4 years later to sort of like half retract or give credence to the fact like, oh no, it's not them now.
Yeah, I do. I mean, to have the paranoia that you need to come back and retract like that on what KY is saying, where it's a post where people might have read and been like, that's interesting, and then moved on to one of the other, 11,000 articles on Reddit.
Right.
That's very clearly, it kind of reeks of guilt of some kind here.
Yeah, and if you know how Reddit works, like Reddit is a search aggregate, and like the articles stay on there for fucking ever, and anyone can read it. But at the same time, like if you would have to Google very specific things to bring it up on Reddit, which is how I found it. But so in my mind, I feel like he posted this thing on Reddit. It went 4 years, and then these two dudes, J and K, were just like, we don't like that, bro. Take it off. We're going to fuck you up in some manner, And so he did. He was like, well, actually, it couldn't have been them because they were too stupid to do it anyways,
Yeah.
Did it have a bunch of, I don't want to say the wrong thing, isn't it shares on Reddit? Don't they share it? Or
up, right? Is it an up thing? Do you share or up?
Upvote,
so I don't know. I don't slime around Reddit too often, But
I mean, like, was it shared a bunch, or was it pumped up? I'm sure it didn't hit the front page or anything, but like, if it had gotten a lot of traction at the time, for whatever mechanisms exist, then maybe, there's always the off chance that this guy was like, if I post an update on this 4 years from now, maybe more people will read it again, and it'd be a little bump to the confidence or something.
So I don't know. I don't actually know how Reddit works. I don't have a Reddit. I don't actually like look on Reddit. This was like something I came across during research for the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you want, I can give you like the tags and the links, and you can.
Connor, how does it work?
Well, I think like the original story would make more sense if, like, they're going to two different television stations and two different affiliates. Right, and they're hijacking the channel for two separate systems.
Right.
So I would think that it's not someone who necessarily knows the system per se. It's just someone who knows maybe cable systems in general. So that would lead me to believe it's more someone, hacking in or, freaking in, whatever. And they just have like more general knowledge, and it's not necessarily an inside job.
Right. It's not the engineer who knows it. It's the person that knows the actual hack who can figure it out in two different places. Now that makes sense.
And for those of you listening, Conman is our like resident technical expert on all things computers and signals and binary.
Binary.
It's all zeros and ones. That's all it is.
Does it bleep? Does it bloop?
Does it bleep? Does it bloop? Connor is in the bloop. I have entered the bloop. Show me the bloop.
Or is it the bleep?
You know what? We've entered the bleep. I'm in the bleep. I'm taking the bleep.
Again, going back to it, it is one of those things. It's like it is such a passing memory now. And if he's only doing it on local stations, it was, very isolated to the Chicago area. The 4 years later thing is just like, wow, man, you are really not helping your case here.
Yeah.
So
and it was kind of like a little bit passive too. It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, it could have been these dudes. I talked to some dudes that were really smart, and they said it couldn't be. All right, see ya.
Yeah.
Right. I wonder
the original Reddit post is huge. The original post and all the day, like he clearly believed in 2009 that it was these three people that committed this crime. And then 4 years later, it was just like, nah, it could have been them. Sorry. Nope. See you. Okay, bye.
I was wondering too, like, so this is obviously stuff that's like local to Chicago, and I can't even begin to speculate how this hack would actually work. But if you had to drive to the actual locations or somewhere, kind of within proximity of the actual stations or within substations or however the hell the kind of network worked, then would that only actually give credence to the fact that it was obviously a local job, that like they went in, they took over a local station by having to be somewhere physical? This was kind of pre-internet, but they had to get into the network or the system somehow. But then they had to physically drive to, what is it, WTTM, WM, what is it, the second one? They went from WGN to the second network, had to drive there. So it took the 2 hours to go drive there, get the setup, and do the shit again. Or could they have done it from one spot? I don't know. It's like that weird, like, old hacking kind of thing of like, did they had to be somewhere else, so that's why it took that amount of time?
We got to get into the mainframe and the network. Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop. We got to be there to do that. Yeah.
Typing out enormous fucking 1-inch goddamn typeboard, the keyboard keys that are so huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Connor, how much like keyboard pecking do you have to do to pull off something like this?
I mean, it all depends, I guess. It's like you would have to have some sort of like external access set up to get in there, right? And it's all done through phone lines in the 80s. So it's like every place has a phone line.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's just like, do they set up remote access at these places?
Yeah.
If they do, then it's possible to get in.
Right.
And do whatever you want. And maybe they, is the 80s, who cares? No one's really looking for it. So maybe they just use like default passwords and all that shit.
Well, I mean,
so maybe they use that.
This was pre-internet. You know what I mean? Like, which makes it even more crazy.
As digital as we think, what if they like tapped in and like overwrote what was shooting out of the main building? Whatever local station was coming out of, they're like, all right, instead of that, click over. We're now sending this that we're streaming from the back of the van.
Yeah, they took over the signal somehow. Whatever the output was, they just substituted their own instead of what was supposed to go.
Back in the day, we called it coaxial cords. Run under the ground. You see, it wasn't all that coronavirus from the antenna towers we're getting these days.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the antenna towers are telling us. Yeah.
I like how whenever we do a voice, it's always like a northeastern thing.
I was thinking more of the dandy yokel, you know, and trying to show you the way along the mountain. You keep it to your damn self. Open the horns out there.
Okay. So I think that we've exhausted. There's like a little bit like some theories that I've developed and who may have committed this weird signal intrusion. Not that they're relevant; they're actually stupid. Like we can't make any jokes out of them. They're kind of dead ends. If you want to go down that route, we can.
Connor was saying before we came back on that we're just like sincerely interested in the story. I mean, you have a very interested audience here.
Okay, so there's a little bit more to this. So the original folks that created Max Headroom were from Britain. So they were Britons, and these two Britons from Britain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not all of England. I think Britain is a certain. I don't know. Fuck it. I've never been there. I don't care.
The other thing they say for those isles, United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the United Kingdom is one portion. Britain is another portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna look that up now. That sounds right. That sounds right. That sounds right. That does sound right.
Because it's Britain, the United, or is it Britain, British Isles, and the United Kingdom?
Like Great Britain is the island, and then UK is like
that's
England,
all. That's all the actual grouping of them. Yeah.
So Great
and Scotland.
So Great Britain is everything they've raped.
Sure.
No, that would be Africa, India, Australia. Like they just it's like all of it. I mean, yeah, us, but we raped them back. Fuck you.
That's true.
But in modern text, we don't use Great Britain because that alludes to the British Empire, and they're not necessarily an empire anymore.
That's right. That's right. Because they're led by a woman.
Empire, as I use my quotes.
I'm sorry, you guys can't see the air quotes, but that was said with air quotes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been all over the fucking world, okay, and they all speak English, every one of them.
Well, so do
which
we.
is fucking great for us.
No, it's super nice. It's super nice. So, all right, about this theory, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So, the original creators of Max Headroom were from Britain, and the MTV had contracted these people to create just some fucking host to break up the monotony of music videos. So, turns out watching music videos for an hour and a half is kind of boring. So they wanted to bring someone on to like host it. So they contracted these two people, and they ended up bringing on a third to create Max Headroom. And they did a lot of brainstorming. There's a lot of dialogue and a lot of history that actually talk about these three folks and how they came about coming up with him. So very interesting. They didn't necessarily come up with Max Headroom to begin with. They came up with a backstory for this guy. They made a movie before they ever made a show, which is super fucking interesting.
So weird.
Yeah. So like there's another rabbit hole here to go down, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the backstory is that this guy, I'd have to look his name up. I don't remember his name, but this guy, fictional character, is working for Studio 23. Studio 23 is like a fucking huge international TV syndicate that has pioneered a new way to pump out abbreviated advertisements. Their entire goal is to keep eyeballs locked on TV sets as long as possible. And these abbreviated advertisements. You don't even like consciously. You're not even aware you're receiving an advertisement. That's like the basis of this thing. So it's like pumping. Help me out here with a word. You're not conscious of it. It comes
Subconscious.
Subconscious, sure, we can call it that. Not really the word I'm looking for, but thanks, KY, for the save. So they're pumping these subliminal. That's what I'm looking for. Is pumping subliminal messages into your face, but it kills like 2% of the population who absorb these things.
This is
so
part of the backstory that it kills 2% of the population.
Yeah, this is the backstory, and the backstory is almost like. It's very Blade Runner-esque. And I love Blade Runner, by the way. Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies of all time. So it's like it like screams Blade Runner. And the original uncut, the director's version. Got it? Not the bullshit with the fucking voiceover. That's fucking horse shit. Anyways, so Studio 23 is killing people with their advertisements. This investigative liberal journalist is like calling him out.
Someone can show his true colors. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, I lean more conservative, but I don't really care. I don't give a shit. Anyways, let's talk about Max Headroom. So Max,
that was my fault.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Down the hole.
Anyways, so Max Headroom. The investigative journalist that he's the backstory. I can't remember his name. I wish I could, man. I'm sorry. Like I'm doing a disservice by not remembering the name. But it's some stupid fucking name, by the way. That I couldn't. Not my fault.
You're like mad at the name. I'm really sorry I forgot the name. Man, fuck this guy and his fucking name anyway, man. We only know Max Headroom. Fuck this guy.
Well, leave it to a couple of Brits to come up with some fucking unrememberable name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve Martins, you know what I mean? Like, fuck off. Give me something. I want the Jeff Blankenship. I can remember Jeff Blankenship every single time. Fuck it. His name's Jeff Blankenship now. So Jeff Blankenship was this investigative journalist working for one of like the Studio 23 folks, and he was investigating how these subliminal advertisements kill people. And something happens, and it's bad, and he's running from bad guys. So here's the fun fact. Prior to 1985, you see all the signs when you go under bridges or when you go through a drive-through. It says max height.
Yeah.
Prior to 1985, they used to say Max Headroom. So as Jeff Blankenship is running from the bad guys, he hits his head on a Max Headroom sign, knocks himself out cold. In fact, pretty much fucking kills himself. They take a hacker, like Con Man here, who hacks into this dude's brain. This is 1980s writing, by the way. They hack this motherfucker's brain, and they make an AI version of him who identifies himself as the last thing he saw, which was Max Headroom. Yeah.
Wow. That is good writing. That's really good 80s writing.
Yeah.
Is there also a jetpack involved at some point? This is pretty impressive.
Jetpacks, lasers, tigers, and gay men. And so anyways, so the three original creators, they made a ton of money in Britain and in the US when the show finally came to the United States. Then when Max Headroom was at his height, he was the spokesperson for Coca-Cola. Some TV I think it was CBS actually, which like lends credence to the reference in the hijacking videos. I want to say CBS. I could be wrong. I don't have my notes in front of me. Look, I made notes. I didn't save them. They're gone.
Perfect.
No, I did. I made like 4 fucking pages of notes because KY. I told you I was going to send KY my notes, and I made all these notes. And I opened up my computer today. I was going to send them to KY this morning, and I was like, "What the fuck are these things?" And I have a page of just X's, like 5 pages of X's. I have no idea how it happened.
Connor already has diagnosed your problem.
He's already found my notes and my porn stash. Don't judge me. Anime, whatever.
Oh God.
You got to edit that, please. So I actually like it when we say you have to edit that. That's like a really like a funny like running joke.
Yeah, running joke. Can I edit that? I'm like, nah, I'm not going to. Fuck this now.
All right. So anyways, in the United States, they made a mini series of Max Headroom, and it's the backstory of Max Headroom. They made a miniseries of, but when they made the miniseries, they did not consult the original creators. In fact, they fired him. Somehow the rights got mixed up when it came to America, and they didn't actually have to hire the original creators as consultants when they made this TV show. So there was 3 people that they hired, and it was, well, the 3 people that created it, it was a man and a woman, and those 2 needed help, so they contracted another man. Can't remember their names. I'd have to look it up. The original 2 creators that were contracted were the ones that did not get hired back. It was a man and a woman. And then inside of the Max Headroom signal hijacking were a man and a woman. And, you know, the first thing that they do in that video when they hijacked WTTN during the showing of Doctor Who, the first thing that they fucking reference is well, the first major thing they reference is the Pepsi can and saying "catch the wave." And it's funny that he says "catch the wave" as if it's a question. Catch the wave? Question mark. So I think perhaps we've overlooked some folks that might be responsible for this, but the guy in the Reddit post really gave a really compelling argument for why it was J and K and M.
I think what's interesting about the fact that it could be, let's just say generally, the creators, the British creators, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So if it could be the British creators, firstly, they definitely sounded American, although that's not a guarantee. You know, someone could be good at it or something. But secondly, what it doesn't explain is how they actually got in. Now, that doesn't mean they wouldn't have the resources to figure it out. But the Reddit post gave both the resources and the knowledge to get in, as well as some sort of idiosyncrasies that might explain what the guy was doing on air.
If they were, so on the theory that they were the British folks, why would they specifically target local TV in Chicago? Would be my question.
Great.
Yeah, that's another really good question that I can't answer. Like I was trying to like play devil's advocate when I was doing my own research, and I came across this Reddit post. Like, well, if it wasn't them, because he gave that he redacted his information 4 years later, so he gave that stupid, shitty, like half-ass post. Well, if maybe that's true. If it is true, then who the fuck was it? So let's look at some other evidence to see who it might have been. But really, I think that the Reddit post, the first Reddit post from 2009, got like he gives, like, if you guys go back, I did a poor job reading it, but if you go and read it from like soup to nuts, he gives such a compelling argument for why it's these folks he knew when he was a kid, because he doesn't just say these are the kind of people that would do it. He gives personalia, he gives mannerisms and actions and the way that this guy Jay behaves, like saying "oh," and he actually, you know, giving some dialogue that would go between Jay. And you see how stilted that guy was on the video, and how stilted the guy was in the dialogue this guy in the Reddit post presented. It's a very compelling argument, and he put a lot of work into compelling us that it was people, and then not so much work into telling us that it wasn't them.
It's also interesting that he chose Reddit as his forum to get that out. But I know Reddit is massively popular, and that's a really engrossing community. But
well, I mean, Reddit is big among people that hack. Reddit is big among people who fish, who freak. You know what I mean? Reddit is big among people who share things they should not be sharing on the internet. You know, Reddit's a big, like, back in the day, Reddit was where you went to get like your beheading videos or your like a rape porn, your snuff videos. You know what I mean? Quite a bit of Reddit has changed. You know, I did my research on the fucking Reddit too. Like, I've been down some fucking weird ass rabbit holes in this story. so Reddit is a place where you used to go to find shit you shouldn't be looking at, you know. So for this guy to be posting on Reddit back in 2009 speaks to the fact that he's probably been involved in some communities, as he's mentioned, that were of some ill repute revolving around hacking and computer shit. And Con Man can probably speak to more of it than I can, because I really am not knowledgeable of it.
I don't know, man. I mean, you never can believe shit you read on the internet.
Because I'm pretty sure that my fucking broom was standing on its own a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
true.
mean, this is someone just writing a story 22 years later.
Yeah.
On some random internet post, making up random names.
True.
And like just using the circumstantial evidence that he does know. Maybe he's doing it for shits and giggles.
You know why Connor is the expert on this? Because he subtracted 87 to 2009 faster than I would have. I would have needed pieces of paper. 22 years, never would have figured that out. I was 22 in 09. Okay.
Okay, I could probably figure that part out, but
maybe.
no, I think that's a great point. That like, even though it sounds the most compelling, like nothing about it. I mean, the truth is, no one's ever going to know who fucking did it. I mean, unless that person literally walks into the FCC and is like, "I did it. Here's all the fucking evidence. Here's the behind the scenes Polaroids that me and the
here's the dildo. Here's the fly.
I've got the dusty dildo. Here's the
mask. This is how I put it in, just like this. You guys saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless somebody shows me the dildo with a fingerprint on the inside, I'm not believing shit.
I do wonder though, like, as far as, and I know the FCC is federal, but like, did they hand it over to the FBI? Did they go down the road? But like, how many of those Max Headroom masks actually existed? Because I think that's where you fucking start. Like, you know, I'm not a fucking law enforcement at all, but it's like, if you got to isolate one part that you could probably try to track it, at least in 87, where are those masks sold? Who are they sold to? You know, credit cards existed in the 80s. Like, go down that fucking rabbit hole, see what happened.
But I mean, Max Headroom was kind of a cultural phenomenon for mid 80s. So they did sell probably a good deal of, you know,
right, but like, so, you know, it's distributor to the store to, okay, it's probably someone in Chicago or the greater Chicago area. Maybe you can isolate it to that. And then like, okay, like, where's like the most popular, who's selling the most units, you get on that road. I know that's like kind of boring, but it's like, if they really couldn't figure it out and like knock on some doors or like do something, and like, I in no way think that this person should actually be arrested. I think it's funny and strange, and I don't actually think it hurts anybody, but like, I don't know. It seems so weird that this far down the road that no one's gotten really close to someone, but I don't know. It'd be nice to hear from somebody.
When you think about it, KY, like, you know, they didn't have a whole lot of like digital recordings of sales back then in 87. Like now, if you buy, you know, your specific brand of dildo, whatever it is you buy, KY, you know, Amazon's going to track that, right? And that's why whenever you pull up your Amazon, you see all these dildo advertisements. Amazon knows. Amazon knows what your butthole likes. You know what I mean?
It does know. Double-sided.
Yeah.
Get a partner.
Yeah.
Get a partner. Yeah, that's. I know. I'm kind of saying like, why didn't people do a better job in the past of doing it? But I mean, it was 32 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I agree.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, I'm glad this guy never got caught because
me too. It's nutty. It's absolutely crazy. It lends itself to the mystery, is what it does.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, if you were this guy, do you tell people? Do you tell people? Would you have told people?
Yeah, I would have.
Okay. People who are close to you. Is it a story you bring up when you're drunk with someone at a bar, or is this like very close, intimate people? Like you're getting married and it's like, hey, babe, there was that thing going on in 87 where WGN and WTTW got hacked. Do you remember that? It was fucking crazy, and this guy was getting paddled, and he was that was me. I was the guy with the mask and the dildo and getting paddled by a flyswatter. That was me. That's
Well,
weird,
I mean-
right? Let's move past that. Let's move past that and get married. But
Just put it out there. It's on the record.
I just wanted to put it out there so you knew it was me. And now I just needed to get that off my chest.
But I feel like if it was big enough, it certainly wouldn't be on this fucking podcast. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's one of those things of like, if you think about like the community maybe, and like, again, Connor, I think we're all kind of looking to you for a little bit of guidance on this, but like if someone had kind of like a brag like that, they know that, yeah, they could walk up to Joe Schmo on the street, like my dad in 87, full of cum, ready to impregnate a woman. And be like, hey, I'm the Max Headroom guy. He'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been high for 5 years. Bye. And then he would like not fucking have a clue what they were talking about, even though it's maybe pop culture in the background. But like, if he was talking to somebody else, or she was talking to somebody else who was like in the industry or like in the freaking or whatever hacking scene is going on at the time, and like, hey, you know that Max Headroom thing? Might have been involved. Or like, hey, did you see that? That was crazy, right? Or like, it's one of those things where you hear about like, I'm saying serial killers, but like people who commit crimes will like ask about their own crimes. Like arsonists will go to the fire to see all the hubbub and see all the lights and celebrate themselves over again. So yeah, this person is probably
masturbate once they get there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, hand to me, absolutely.
Hand to me.
Definitely hand to me.
Hand to me.
I made that fire. Look what's going on.
That's like Hot Pocket. That's how they came up with Hot Pockets.
Yeah, that is.
So, but if in that case, then if this guy's bragging about it at a party full of fucking computer nerds, he starts jacking off in the middle of the room.
Guys, guess what? I did it. That was me.
Watch out! Watch your shoes! Watch your shoes!
Watch your shoes! Oh!
Oh!
Starts calling everyone nerds. Liberal nerds.
So
Yeah, like I could see that, but like to Justin's point earlier, like the FCC came out early and said it's what $100,000
plus a year in prison
in a year. Then like that would shut anybody up.
But do you think so? Do you think, okay, if you are this person who did this, and clearly you did this for, there was some motive behind what you were doing, even if it was just the idea of,
I don't know,
everything.
I don't think so.
I think it's agent of chaos theory, right? It's like somebody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is that's your motive. That serves as a motive here. So years later, okay, you are now, let's say, working a desk job, doing whatever. Would you tell, say, like a close friend or whatever, like, you won't believe this thing I did in 87 with a friend of mine. It was that, no, listen to me. This is really cool. I had a Max Headroom mask. You don't remember who that is? Has to tell who Max Headroom is, and then goes into a whole thing about like, I had a dildo on my hand.
There was a woman in a cowgirl dress.
And I got like kind of spanked, but it was more like just grazing with like a flyswatter on my ass.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good.
I love how Big Cat keeps going back to this, like, not true BDSM for sure.
It wasn't true BDSM. I didn't get off on camera. Yeah.
Off on camera.
So what I think lends like a little bit of credence to this guy's original Reddit post. He comes back and he's like, well, it should be someone who's involved in definitely someone involved in the syndicate, someone who knows the way that the stations are set up. It makes me think that maybe like J, K, and M have arrived at some type of notoriety somewhere along the lines, because if they can hack shit as well as they did back in 87, what did they come up with in the 90s and the early 2000s or even now that they're making a ton of money off of? Like, maybe these are some like famous fuckers that are like, that have really caught on nowadays. Like, these are some people that are like household names now. They weren't back in 87.
Well, yeah, so it could be something as much as like just in the industry of how media runs today on the different technological forums. Like, you talk about like the guy who created essentially the Clear Channel stream for radio. All songs have to be mastered to that particular forum. and he owns all the rights to Clear Channel. So this guy's like a, you know, trillionaire at this point because everything has to go through that.
Yeah, so really, so Jeff Bezos is J, so he's the guy getting spanked, and Stephen King is K. He's the guy running the camera, and then give me like an M. Who's a good M for the woman?
Madonna.
Madonna.
Yeah. You know what? Madonna was kind of famous in the 80s, wasn't she?
Yeah.
This is her heyday.
Well, she didn't have to. She didn't have the cone titties in the video, so.
You're like waiting for a check on that. Like, she didn't have cone titties. Was this then? Was that what happened? Somebody correct me, or I'm just gonna keep going because I don't fucking know.
Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure the cone titties were after or before.
Listen,
Yeah, I guess, like, to that point, I honestly don't know. Like, you know for a fact, like, I don't know. In newscasting, though, the only people you know are the quote-unquote talent, right? You know a pretty person who knows how to talk on screen, basically, after the 80s. After that, though, or, sorry, like, besides that, it would have to be a background person developing technology. So I think to Ryan's point, it's like, this person may be famous, but they're not, like, I don't know, I wouldn't think that they would be a household name. Like, fucking, you know, Dan Rather doesn't know how to break into the system. He just shows up, puts on 5 pounds of makeup.
Otherwise, he would be breaking into every fucking newscast all the time, like a fucking lunatic. Dan Rather, after a few drinks, and he decided to get behind the broadcast. I was in Vietnam. That was me. Over there.
Actually, Big Cat did a better Dan Rather.
That was a great Dan Rather. I was on the ground, right? I was in the fucking war. I don't get a fucking medal.
And what happened? You don't even understand. Stop it.
Ken's like whisper talking at us all, like, somebody get this man a drink. Or
someone get this, yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
It's like, I'm going to say something controversial. He's not drunk enough yet. Get this man.
He's definitely not drunk enough yet. This is Dan Rather, and there was a man on TV with dildo fingers and a Max Headroom. Dildo fingers.
I don't know if I can hear the phrase dildo fingers and not laugh. Like,
dildo fingers.
Well, KY, what if we changed it up to marital aid fingers? Is that a little bit more digestible for you, you pussy?
See, now that's going to be a thing. That's definitely going to be so good. It's like a weird, like, PG way to, like, hurt someone, but, like, it's not offensive at all. Even if you like are like a diehard liberal and all this other stuff, it's like, you freaking liberal, and it's like, all right.
Well, so in '87 it might have been offensive nowadays because people wear the liberal thing, like, I'm offended by everything. I'm a liberal. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Well, now you're assigning your own thing to it. I feel like you're doing your own thing.
Do you want me to make fun of conservatives too?
No.
I offend everything. I'm a conservative. Yeah.
That was good.
All these have badges, according to your pantomime. They all have badges.
They all have badges and they all suck.
I'm a libertarian and I'm right all the time. It's a curse.
That's actually not wrong. As a libertarian, I back that statement.
I am legitimately correct more often than not. So.
Actually, libertarian is just the most conservative.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I want no one in my business. I actually teeter on crossing the spectrum back into liberalism.
Right, yeah. It's like, I want to be so free that I'm not good with this joke. This is just a bad joke.
That I Winnie the Pooh without any pants on.
Bail, cut it. Cut the joke. It's a terrible joke.
Yeah. I was going to go in a deep, dark place. We couldn't put on this.
Yeah.
Here's J Money's summation. J Money's summation runs like this in the scenario.
J Money's not. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So we had a guy, okay, maybe autistic, maybe not. Who knows? Still up in the air. He hijacked 2 different channels in Chicago because people in Chicago don't give a fuck. And the first one was just him staring dead ass in the camera with a Max Headroom mask on. It was really creepy. And when it got done, no one knew where it was. No one really cared because it's Chicago. And then 2 hours later, when they interrupted everyone's favorite programming of Doctor Who,
He came out with dildos, Pepsi cans, fly swatters, and bare asses. Everyone hated it because it was weird and creepy. He gave us a ton of material to make fun of, and then it just ended at 90 seconds, and no one ever heard of the guy ever again for 32 years. Crime unsolved. May have been 2 famous people back in Britain, may have been 2 unfamous people in Chicago who might be kind of famous now, but we don't really know. Summated. Suck it.
Summated. Boom. Done.